I just barely decided it was okay to wear one. Poor Josh and Faye. They're like, I don't care if we get sick, but we have to leave the country. We can't risk it. Well, you're still gonna hang out with me though, right? So
Sunday will be their last Sunday out with anybody. That's what he said.
They get tested on their 15th, I think.
Okay.
Help me remember to ask about that after class,
Okay.
because I have a question to ask or something to say. Okay.
Should I write it down? I don't know how I'm gonna help you remember that.
Well, I was actually asking her to do that, not. Okay.
I am drinking coffee now, though, so my brain might wake up.
Okay. So we're going to be in the workbook today. We're going to start looking at working on some of the, I don't know what you call these in math. We call them problems. Exercises. There we go. Exercises. That's the other thing when I teach Greek is I trip over my tongue with stuff. So I feel like if you're really going to be a teacher of another language, you should be kind of smooth and clear. But I kind of, you have expectations of what you have to be a teacher.
It's quite pleasing to me that you seem human, actually.
Thank you.
So.
Without a doubt. Okay, the first thing they point out under number 1, B, after they did the vocabulary, and we've been going over the vocabulary. And by the way, I did look up Cephas, and even though it starts with a C in English, and I've pronounced it Cephas probably since I was a kid, I did look it up, and it is pronounced Cephas. It is, because I was thinking, because there's not a C sound for a kappa.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I literally have never heard anyone pronounce it anything other than Cephas, though.
yeah. So, yeah, there's lots of words that people regularly mispronounce. So 1B, the combination of menda, which we've already talked about, is frequently employed to present contrast, with men often being left untranslated and dead translated as ba. So as we already said, I translate it out because the word occurs there. And so I translate it out because, let's put it this way, if you were Greek and you were speaking, you would have said the men. Right. It's not just that it was a written thing, you actually would have spoken it. So in some way, they had a connotation or an understanding of what men meant when they spoke it as a language. So I would, on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, so on and so forth. Because you can have a string, like I said in Ephesians 4:11, where you've got the different sets of gifts. So there's 4 of them like that. Very important. Let's go down to 9.2b, note that the unemphatic forms of the first personal pronouns, mu, moi, ma, are enclitic. If you remember the difference between, what's the difference between a proclitic and an enclitic?
Proclitic comes first before whatever word that it's going to be connected with when you say them together.
Mm-hmm.
And enclitic is at the end.
Okay.
And you say them together.
And because you say them together,
they don't have their own accents.
They don't have their own accents, exactly. Okay. And then we have what we call the emphatic forms. So that was one of the questions that was asked in the last lesson. What is the difference between mu and emu, moi and emoi? The difference is an unemphatic form versus an emphatic form. And we have the same thing is true of the second person singular. The only difference there is while they do not have a vowel in the front, it's the accent. Accent is the difference. Okay, so what is the function of personal pronouns? English teacher, what do personal pronouns do?
They take the place of the men.
Okay, They take the place of a noun.
And I like that they also put in there that it helps to avoid monotony.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Then we have one of the big words that you need to learn for Greek. It's kind of fun to say in front of people because then they think that you are smart and important and you can fool them for a brief moment. Is the word?
Antecedent.
Antecedent. Antecedent is the noun or substantive for which a pronoun stands. And we use that word in English too, obviously, having to find out what the antecedent. So a pronoun has to agree with its antecedent in?
Gender and number.
Okay. But its
Case.
is determined by its use in the sentence, okay, which we've already illustrated that in previously. Personal pronouns are not used in the,
Nominative.
okay, they don't occur in the nominative case unless there's emphasis that is desired. And so we were talking about those. In fact, I did a whole series in December on Sunday mornings on the ego I me's. Well, we did that one day out of John, I should say, but we have done a series in the past on that. And it's a good set of interesting teaching studies on who Jesus Christ is. But those are all for emphasis because all he had to do is say, I mean. And he does say, I mean in some places. 9.3 C1, when autos is in the,
Attributive.
okay, whether in the nominative or another case, it is always, we translate it the same. And that's not always the case, but it's the most common way that we translate it in that way. And when it is in the,
Predicative.
okay, then it is intensive and it's translated himself. And we talked about that, he himself, in those situations. Top of page 64. Another intensive use of the personal pronoun is with a pronoun or,
Sorry.
sorry,
Unexpressed subject.
okay. So what would be, what does that mean, an unexpressed subject?
You got me. Another intensive use of personal pronoun is with a pronoun or unexpressed subject of a verb. So if the verb, if it doesn't say Johnny threw the ball, it's just the he threw form of the verb.
Okay, that's unexpressed. And what would that form be?
I.
Threw. Johnny threw the ball. What, yeah. What's the Greek word? His early vocabulary.
Do I know
Good
that
practice.
word?
Yeah, to throw.
To throw? I don't believe that I know that.
We actually, what did he throw? What did you say threw?
Ball.
Ah, what?
Follow.
Bala would be I throw. So
Oh,
if Johnny throws, it would be
balai.
balai. Very good. Yeah.
I don't think I know that word.
Okay.
I mean, I know it now, but I don't think I knew
Yeah.
it before right now.
Yeah. That was some of our early vocabulary here. We learned that early on in this. So you're going to go check your vocabulary.
I don't
word.
think so.
Okay. Okay. 9.3D.
Oh, back to the word.
The
unaccented or unemphatic
form of the personal pronoun are used in the genitive case to express possession. Okay. And so what was the way, I use this as an illustration, what was the way I was learned to translate that? You remember how I said it? It's really awkward English.
of me.
Of me, yeah. The wife of me, the book of me, okay. But how would we say that? That actually like almost brings, yeah, we would say my. That's the way we would do it. And the interesting thing about that, and I think maybe one of the reasons my professor, the two professors I had us translated of me, that was older English a little bit, but it's also because there is a whole other possessive pronoun that is used at times. It's
mine.
Yeah, and it has really mine. That's the only way that it is used, mine or ours or something like that. And eventually we will learn that. I think we've actually seen the word in translation, but
That's all right.
Okay, 9.3e, after
Prepositions.
the emphatic form of the personal pronouns are ordinarily used. Okay, after prepositions.
Okay, so after prepositions, the emphatic forms of the personal pronouns are ordinarily used. Here's my problem. That word preposition feels like it means nothing to me.
Okay, prepositions are what we learned in the last lesson. It's
Which
all the
are?
words that, what were the prepositions?
Yes, in, around, above, below, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay,
To, from, yes.
got it.
Okay. So when we have prepositions then that are used, we are also going to have an emphatic form. What is an emphatic form of personal pronoun? How do you know it's emphatic?
As an accent.
As an accent. Okay. And those are the personal pronouns. Those are in the singular. Those are the ego, emu, amoy, meh.
Didn't you say the accents didn't come until later?
They did, yes, exactly. But it's seriously, accenting and all of this is a very big deal
But
for
it's in
a lot
there
of Greek
now.
teachers. Yeah. Although it is interesting sometimes that you will have places where you have an accented word and the teachers will question and debate whether that accent is accurate, whether that was accurate, whether it actually should be this. Because there's some places where the only way that you know whether it's this or this is based on the accent. And that's something, remember, that was not
Give us an
written.
example.
I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. I've run into them
So
when I'm translating. It's not like it's all that common.
that just makes me think like when they like you said, when they originally wrote it, there weren't
Right?
accents. So somebody put them in, and now people are arguing over whether or not it should be accented this way or that when it never was accented to begin with in the first place.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh, Satan. You are so crafty.
And what happens is sometimes it doesn't necessarily change the definition of the word that's there, but it may change the emphasis that's being given into that word. Are we saying it like this, or are we saying it like this?
Just how you pronounce it.
No, it's not the pronunciation. It's actually kind of how it's functioning
Because
in the
like
sentence.
with personal pronouns, if it has an accent, it's
Emphasized.
emphasized. Yes.
Yeah. If I come across one, I will try to write it down and remember that for the next class, or somewhere down the road, just to illustrate that. Because I have come across those where I translate it this way, and then I check myself. When I'm done translating, I go and check myself off my computer or off other books, and I'm looking at them going, why did they go that way? And then I'll look and I'll go, well, it's because of the accent that they translated it that way. And I'm like, really? And then I always wondered that, to me, it's interesting that the accent would have that much influence. Now, we understand in other languages, change of inflection in a word can completely change the meaning of words in some languages. But
some languages, pitch can change the meaning of the word.
yeah, well, technically, pitch is.
I'm really glad I don't speak.
Yeah, it is your accent. Yeah, yeah.
True.
At least we think that. At least we think that's what the accents were about. Is there a fall? Is there a rise and a fall? Is there, a rise? This is what we're trying to figure out. Okay, 9.4a. All forms of I, me. What is I, me?
I am.
I am. So it's a verb. It's a stative verb. Are enclitic except I, which is the third person form of this. So I, me would be I would be he, or it's would be really.
Take your time.
I am stumbling over myself. Estin is the third person. This is second. Okay. And then the infinitive I, nigh.
So the only reason we know any of those other words besides I, me is because they're written in the book, right? Like I shouldn't know how to conjugate I, me already. It's a me verb, and we haven't learned me verbs.
Actually, we did on 9.4. We have I, me, I, estin, esmen. So we did learn them under 9.4. 9.4. Yeah, so they were part of this lesson.
I see.
To learn.
You're right. Excuse me.
To learn the present indicative forms of I, me.
Pardon my language.
And remember, when we conjugate those, we have no voice. So it's just present indicative or aorist indicative. It's never going to be present active or passive because it's just talking about state of being. So, okay.
So back to the question. All forms of I, me are included except I in the infinitive I.
So they're going to retain their accent. They're going to be pronounced separate then in that way from the word that precedes them. They're not going to lose their accent or drop that. You're going to pronounce them separately. And that's really why, and I don't exactly know how you do that. It'd be interesting to hear a Greek-speaking person that actually pronounces those words together. It'd be interesting to know how that works, to pronounce them together in such a way that the I, me verbs lose their accent in pronunciation. I don't know what that would sound like. I suppose we could go through and we could practice trying to say it, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, 9.4b. Why does I, me verb forms not have voice?
Yeah, can we just talk about how though that is a major typo just in the wording of that sentence?
It's awkward sentence.
Why then
do I, me verb forms not have voice?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Shows a state of being, not an action.
Okay. And the state of being is
I am.
just what it is. It's kind of almost active by nature. The thing exists. Okay, 9.4c. I, me forms.
Oh, sorry. Esty and ice.
Okay, they have a movable noon. And what I learned to do a long time ago was if they have a movable nu at the end, is that I write the nu on the end of the word and put it in parentheses just to know that it's optional. Okay.
And we only use it when it's before a word that starts with a vowel, right?
That's right. Smooths out pronunciation, which we've kind of already come across that before. 9.4d, I, me verbs take a predicate nominative. Okay.
So can I just point out that in the book, when it talks about this, it does not say predicate nominative. And last week when we were talking about it, you were not saying predicate nominative. We were talking about complement,
right?
Which was super confusing, but I appreciate that they put predicate nominative in here because that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because that's what it is.
Right.
That's just I was having a really hard time understanding.
Yeah, we've kind of switched up. We've kind of switched up vocabulary on us here. So it is good to kind of connect all that because we've already looked at what a predicate nominative. It's a nominative that actually occurs in the last half of a sentence. Okay, we got that. Complement, not compliment. I'm complimenting. Complement with an E rather than an I means that it's completing an idea. It's filling something out. We all understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, if I were to say the man is a farmer in English doesn't change form. It looks the same whether it's in the nominative or as the direct object, but it's technically functioning as a predicate nominative because it's connected to the person on the first half. It's not telling you what he's doing, it's telling you who he is. And so when we have an I, me verb, when Jesus says, I am, ego, I, me, I am the light of the world. Light is a predicate nominative. It's telling you what he is. It's a compliment. It's expressing. He could simply say, I am. And he does do that. But sometimes you have a statement where he's going to fill that out and he's going to say, I am something. I am this. So he can say, I am the light of the world. I am bread. I am the bread from heaven, and so on and so forth. And they fill out that, so they complete that idea. So therefore, it's a compliment. Complements that. I, me verbs never take then a direct object. because a direct object is he throws what? He throws a ball. He's not throwing himself. So ball and the person are not identical. Okay, so that's a direct object. Or as a predicate nominative, he is a farmer. He and farmer are the same. They're the same thing.
Do we call this the same thing in English? If you were saying in English, the man is a farmer, is the farmer a predicate nominative, or because it doesn't have a nominative case, or would we say that the farmer?
That I can't tell you. I don't know exactly how we describe that in English. I need to look that up to see what our terminology in English is.
I think that it is.
So.
I am life.
Because we have that situation. I just don't know what terminology we use.
I mean, even Peg is a teacher. So we're equating the two things. What do we call that in English? And I don't know if it even matters. I'm just curious.
Okay. Made a note for myself to go back and look at that. Okay. So anyway, I'm just trying to make sure we understand the difference between predicate nominative again and direct object and how the two are related to an IME verb. Because you don't have a direct object of an IME verb. That doesn't make any sense.
Therefore, accusative case is not used.
Yeah. So it has to be in the nominative case because it's matching what's said on the other side. Okay, 4, the predicate nominative is in the
It's in the nominative case.
It's in the nominative case, so that it agrees with the subject. Exactly. Okay, then why does Greek not require a verb of being, a to be verb, such as eimi, estin, and so on, to be included in a sentence?
Because it's understood from context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as a result of that, how does this affect the order of words in a sentence?
Well, the book says normally the subject won't be first in the sentence.
Okay. And
so this is talking about if we have a verb but no nominative noun, right?
no, we don't have to have the verb. This is when we have the nominative noun. Okay.
Explain why Greek does not require
the verb of being
to be included in a sentence.
Where is that?
So that
So we can-
doesn't mean,
Example.
So we can simply have verbless
Example.
clauses. And we're actually going to have a verbless clause example. Let me see if I can find it. We have it in our exercises. Let's see if I can find.
agape ha theos. We know that means God is love, even though there's not an I mean verb, even though there's not an is. There's no verb.
I'm just trying to find, because there was one in here. Oh. 1 Corinthians 1:12. 1 Corinthians 1:12, which is exercise 7 in here on page 68. It says, Hekastos humon lega. Oh,
What, you're
What
in
number?
number 7,
Oh,
page
okay,
68,
got it.
very top of the page.
In the book.
Yeah. Or it's in the workbook too, yeah.
Sorry.
So it's Hekastos humon legai. So each one of you says, and now we have ego men, which would be indeed, and then we ego eimi palu. So I am. So now there's a verb, but then it goes de or ego de Apollo, ego de Kepha, ego de Christu. And so none of those, we only have eimi in the first clause. The rest of them with Apollos, Cephas, Christ, it's just ego. They don't repeat the verb. So the verb is only stated once. So that's an example of the fact. But in English, in fact, actually, a lot of your English translations don't even include the verb. because it comes across in English just fine, where we say, I am of Paul, I'm of Apollos, I am of Cephas, I am of Christ. Oh, wait a second. I'm saying that I am saying it. I just realized I am saying, I am including it in there. I've just realized I am saying it. I'm just saying it so fast I don't even realize it. But in Greek, you don't have to, because it's understood in all of those. So those are examples of verbless clauses. The verb is unnecessary if you have.
Not to me.
Okay. Well, it's just, the thing is if you have verbless clauses in Greek, normally your first route to go to is you're going to put a state of being verb in there. So if you have a nominative noun and then it goes on and says something about them, but there's no verb in there, you normally start by putting in present indicative form of I, me, present indicative form of the to be verb. You're going to plug that in there. You might have to alter it. You might have to give it a past tense because of the context. You know, the thing, let's put it this way. If you're reading in past tense and you have one, you're going to read a past tense state of being verb into there in simple terms, if that's the way you're reading it. Or if you're in the future, speaking in future tense, it just makes more sense to all of a sudden plug in a present tense. You're going to go, that sounds weird now because I'm talking about the past.
So why is the de in there?
Because that's separating each one of those. That's that men-de construction that we've talked about. So I, on the one hand, am of Paul, but I of Apollos, but I of Christ.
See. Okay, ego, men, I, me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an example of a men-de. Okay. So there's an example of it. But there are actually quite a few of those. There's quite a few places in the New Testament where you have verbless clauses.
So, which normally de is our definition, our gloss for de is but, and, or now.
Right.
But in this way, it's used more of like or.
Could be, or it could be but. I would translate it but. I would say on the one hand, I am of Paul, but I am of Apollos, but I am of Cephas, but I am of Christ. Because I think the des are trying to separate all of them. They're trying to separate because you've got a divided group.
Okay, what's ego?
I.
Okay.
I.
So I just didn't do that. I the first I.
Yeah.
Just finish it. I am.
Yeah. So you have ego. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that was 9.4F. So Greek particles, 9.5. Oh, I gave you the answer. Greek particles.
Wait, we're going back.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So would this be classified as predicative usage? No. That was the question I wrote here. So when we use, oh gosh, no, I can't. Like when you don't have, the example they have in here is, hold on. Agape hatheos, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agape hatheos, God is love. So that is the predicative use of agape there. But that's not the same. So it's not always the predicative, not always seeing words in the predicative usage. I can't speak English in a way that makes this make sense.
Well, we have that in the example in exercise number 7 is a case in point. Right. There is no, you only have the subject listed, ego. And so it's the subject, but there's no predicative noun following it, because what follows it is a genitive, or maybe ablative, but I would say genitive case of these different names: Paul, Apollos, Peter, Cephas, and Christ. And because you're saying I am of them is what he's saying. He's not saying I am Paul, I am Apollos, I am Cephas. He says I am of that person. I'm connected with them. The issue in the issue there in 1 Corinthians, it's a loyalty issue, that they're showing loyalty to one individual over other individuals.
So then it's not always going to be predicative usage, but it can be.
It can be, yes.
Okay, now we can move on.
Okay. D5, and which I already said, Greek particles are words that do not properly belong to any other category, such as noun, verb, or adjective. And particles are usually used for emphasis. They transition from one idea to another or to express the negative. Okay. Okay. And so then in this vocabulary, it said amen, de, and u, and then u and uk. Okay. Anyway, are particles, though de in some contexts is a conjunction. Amen is emphatic. De is, and we get that because a but, when you have it a but or now, that's transitioning from one thing to the next. And u is, okay. And you remember, and see if you remember this was outside the lesson. Amen comes from Hebrew. Okay. Because in Hebrew, yeah. Because the Hebrew word true is emeth, and to believe is amen, in Hebrew. And so they've just brought this over. And so it probably ends up in the Bible because Jesus and the disciples probably spoke, I'm going to say Hebrew. Modern day scholars are saying they spoke Aramaic, but there's a couple of guys that have actually written papers demonstrating that there are statements that Jesus makes, they're written in Greek for us, but that statement, had it been spoken in Aramaic, would have had a different sense than it had in Hebrew. Even though Aramaic and Hebrew, if you look at them, you'd go, oh, it's the same language, because it's the same alphabet. And a lot of things are the same. There are things that are different between the two. And so, and I can guarantee you, when we went through Daniel a couple of years ago, and I wasn't even treading water when I was trying to translate the Aramaic sections of Daniel. Going through that, I was drowning in there, because there is some difference in vocabulary, and there's a little bit of difference in structure. And if it wouldn't have been for books and stuff that I had around, I would have drowned. Because there is a little bit different. But so anyway, all what I was trying to say is, this is not Greek necessarily, but there are people that are saying that they're trying to make a case for the fact that, contrary to modern scholars that think that they spoke Aramaic, that they actually were speaking Hebrew. And it's interesting, the New Testament does not state that they spoke in Aramaic. It actually uses the word Hebruske, saying that they were speaking in Hebrew. And people would go, well, what they meant was Aramaic. But that's not what the word says. They had a perfectly good word for that. So anyway.
De is post positive.
Which means?
It's not going to come first in the sentence, but we translate it first.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't make sense for us to put it in the... And sometimes, depending on, like, if you have a definite article and a noun, the de will follow both of those. It'll follow the noun, not just the definite article.
In this example here, pisteos.
Now, interesting, in Romans 1:17, they dropped the de between the definite article and the noun in that case. But
right. So
just know that it's not always going to be absolutely in the second position. Okay, what are our negative particles?
Ooh, ook, and ooks. Except for they keep putting it in here.
Yeah. Well, and we actually have, so while we have oo and ook, this we also have it like that. but we're going to have situations, and I was going to look these up, and I forgot to do that. Places where the form is going to change over there to exceed, like this, and I didn't. I came across one this week when I was working, but I forgot to write it down.
So, right, so is
Yeah.
that not a
So-
typo?
So that's not a typo. then?
Well, no, I think what we had in the book,
You had the,
we had two of these.
no.
Oh.
You had the,
The chi on the end.
Yeah.
See, I don't remember that we had the chi. I thought it was
Yeah.
two of these. Maybe I
Yeah.
just didn't
Nope.
remember it
It's
right.
just you say
because I
those the
changed
same
it.
with the cap and the chi.
Yes,
Would
yes,
be-
yes. They're both kind of a hard K or hard CH. Yeah. So,
So it's not ooks.
well, they're not telling you. I'm telling you that we also need to know this and recognize this
Okay.
because you're going to run into that in
Okay.
certain situations. Yes.
All right then.
Oh,
See,
uh,
cross it out.
I can't see. Oh, right there.
To remember what I'm supposed to remember. about
Oh,
that.
and they do have the, okay, yeah. So you are gonna have this form, but you're also gonna have this, and this is what I was trying to point out, is that you're gonna run into this other bizarre form in certain situations.
Why would you have two of the same?
Right, it's the same
Pronunciations.
sound.
Most likely because this is hard for us to understand where we have dictionaries, but their spelling varies. In fact, even when you go through the New Testament, you've got the same name that is not spelled the same all through Scripture sometimes
So
in the New
they
Testament.
interchange them.
Yes,
Interesting.
yeah.
So
But
slash.
this,
Slash.
yeah. But these endings, remember, why are they added? Why do we have those?
Rough. Smooth.
Yes, yeah, it's to smooth out breathing. It's to smooth out breathing
That's one of them.
with the word that follows. So when you
Which
have,
will start with a vowel.
there we go.
So the ook and ook should have a slash in between them. Because
That-
I could see them in that way
You
or
could-
that way.
There we go. Let's do that.
Okay. Okay.
Let's do it that way. That's not the way they're presenting, but that's just
Oh,
fine.
man.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 9.6. Several Greek words are accented with an adjoining word. We already talked about these towards the beginning, but these words are called either,
Proclitics or enclitics.
okay, and enclitics, they're joined to which word?
The one in the beginning.
They
Okay,
come after.
and the proclitic, okay, they come before the word. Very good. Oh, and look at that. If we just went on the top of page 65, a proclitic is so closely associated with the following word. So that actually just answered our question there. Okay. True or false? 963. A proclitic does alter the accent of adjacent words.
Also.
False. No, it just loses its accent. And then a blank
Enclitic.
attaches itself to the preceding word with the result that the
Blank. So does the enclitic lose its accent, or does the word that it's coming after lose its accent?
okay.
That's what I don't know.
If we go to 9.6
Mhm.
B, it says an enclitic joins to the preceding word with the result that it loses its accent under certain conditions.
Uh-huh.
However, often the preceding word, So-
So what is it?
that's the enclitic.
Okay.
Yeah, see that the proclitics and enclitics lose their accents,
An
either with the word that
joins
follows it or
to
the word that
preceding
precedes it, depending
word,
on,
the result that the enclitic loses its accent.
Right.
Okay.
and then it's often the preceding word has its accent altered because technically, if you have, think about this just for, this is interesting because it's all about accents.
We
We're
don't
talking
think about accents
So,
in this class.
Nope,
Mhm.
they do not
okay,
exist.
those are the syllables of a word. Okay, so which of those syllables can carry accents?
Last three.
Right.
These are the only three that can carry accents.
3, 4,
Okay.
5.
Now, if we add let's add an enclitic, okay? So let's add ego. Really bad ego there. We add that. Now, what did we just do?
We added 2 syllables.
We added 2 syllables. So it's going to alter, it can't alter the syllable, the accent here, because it's going to draw the accent back.
Even though they're not written as one word, they are pronounced as one word.
Right. And so the accent is affected that way under those rules. That's what's happening. Again, I can explain some of this to you. Or I know they're putting a big deal on this. You need to understand proclitics and analytics is the fact that you're going to come across words and you're going to go, there's no accent on this, and you're going to have to understand this is unemphatic and this is emphatic. That is helpful. The other thing is with the indefinite and the interrogative. This is indefinite. It's an indefinite relative pronoun. Who, what, or whom, depending on the case that it's in. But if you have it like this, you can't see the accent up there.
Tis.
Now it is, no, now it is interrogative. It becomes, it leads a question. So now it's not whoever or whatever or anyone. Now it's going to be who.
So is that a word that would have had an accent in it in the original writings that didn't have accents everywhere?
Again, you very, very seldom see accents in the original writings. In the oldest copies of the original writings that we have, is the way we should put it. So we have no evidence that
didn't want to take the time.
They were lazy. Is that what we're saying?
Let's put it this way. I think what happened is people become accustomed to reading things without that. I was telling you about like reading Hebrew without the vowel pointing underneath. You can pick it up pretty fast, and for the most part, it's not too hard. Same thing over here. Probably for a while, these people reading it, but and this is my guess, as Latin began to displace Greek under the influence of Rome, as that happens, you're having fewer and fewer people that read Greek. And so now, to make sure that they know how to pronounce these words properly, they begin adding accents to make sure that they're putting the right emphasis in the right places, because it has a different sense. Whereas otherwise, these people would have read this stuff and it would have been more natural. Just like if you read stuff, people put those things on Facebook where read this and you can read it, but it's jumble, but it makes sense to you because you know English well enough that your mind kind of sifts through that really fast. Well, that would have happened to somebody that was a native speaker of Greek. They would have known, oh, well, that's interrogative. I mean, it's just they kind of tell where it is, the way the sentence is written. They just pick it up just like that without hardly thinking about it. But pretty soon you have people that aren't native and they don't pick up on those cues. It's not something that they're accustomed to hearing and saying. So now you have to add accents to try to make sure that that's what this is.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's one of the ideas that I kind of would agree with on why accents ended up being added, was to make this easier for non-native Greek speakers.
So these are kind of like compound words, except
But not.
But they're just not.
separate.
Compound pronunciation,
Okay.
but
Not
not.
a contraction.
But now I've shown both of you. Well, no, let's
Okay, yeah.
let's,
Give it to me. What have you shown me?
if you flip back to page 6. This is the very last page of lesson 1.
All the way in the front of the book.
And I think we're done at this point. We're not gonna start into the sentence exercises at this point.
That's fine. I
Okay.
suppose. All the way back here, yep.
Okay. So here is, and I should see if I can figure out how to get this to go back here. 6. There we go.
So, yeah, no spaces.
Oh, I see.
No,
This is slid over. Yeah. So they just wrote word upon word. And boy, I cannot get that to center for some reason.
I can't read any of it.
There we go. Okay, this is what we're looking at. That is, so that's a copy you can see from 1 Corinthians chapter 4. But the words are just,
Mayo. I don't even know what the word means, but I see it.
interestingly enough, the page, that is very interesting.
And then all these letters are capitalized.
They wrote in all capital letters. They did not write in any lowercase. This is really interesting. What I have here and what is on the digital form is two different pages. They're not the same one. It's I think it's the same manuscript.
Oh, well, isn't that?
But what's the very first word?
Mine is Kai.
No,
It's just Kai.
Yours is
No, it's not.
No.
But not in yours.
Oh, okay.
Yours is the word nomen. But
Yeah.
then what's the word right after nomen?
Kai.
Chi. Yeah, you do have a chi there, so you can word you recognize. But what I was saying is, you said these. You were asking these are like compound words,
Yeah, zero.
but they all were compounds because they were just written right together. Which you think that's bizarre, but I pulled these up on much clearer text to read than this, and I've read them, and you're like, yeah, you can kind of follow along, and you can. This is 1 Corinthians 4, the one on the digital version, the one in the Kindle version is from 1 Corinthians 6, it says, but it's the same papyri manuscript. It's the Chester Beatty papyri. Anyway.
They did that because it's clear.
They did lighten it for sure in the digital version.
Okay. So, yeah, a lot of interesting things.
All right, so Thursday we'll start translating some sentences.
Everybody's going to practice translating. I don't have to do it in class, but everybody's going to try to practice this. So.
Are you on YouTube still?
I'm going to go off in just a moment here. So that today is the 2nd, so that will be the 4th.
Groundhog Day.
Which means we're never going to get to Thursday.
Okay. Thank you.